I'm going to wing it today on another shaky hand video about this photograph taken at the Altamont Mall on October 17th, 1977, and kind of some of the story behind this photograph. The plane the band crashed in sat at the Lakeland airport for 3 days, and the band had a hotel right near the Lakeland airport. And on October 17th, the band had a day off, so some of the band members, well, basically a whole band, but they all, I don't think Leslie, the backup singers may not have traveled there. Okay, I don't recall photographs seeing the backup singers at this event. If they were, maybe somebody can correct me, but I haven't got any photographs of that. But the band took two limousines from their hotel to the Altamont Mall on the southwest parking lot there. I think near the Sears Auto place was where the backstage area was, and the band went there first. They did radio interviews and local media and whatnot. And then the band members started coming out one by one to the table, which had these specially made MCA promotional posters for the release of the Street Survivors album. Ronnie was one of the last ones to come out. And in this picture, you can see very clearly, you can see Bobby Sanders right here. You can see Ronnie. You can see Gene Odum. And this is a band manager. I don't remember his name. Gene may remember his name, but Gene's talking to him. And you can see that Ronnie is putting pen to paper for Bobby Sanders, of what some say is the last photograph Ronnie ever did. But if you want to see what Ronnie actually signed on that day, it's one of those posters that was hanging off the front of the table. And here is the Bobby Sanders poster that was signed by Ronnie on that day. Now, you can't see the signatures clearly. You got Gary Rossington right here. You got Leon here. Alan Collins, Billy Powell, Steve Gaines, Ronnie Van Zant signed right there between his legs. And there's another signature up here, which I can't really read, and I think Artemis is up here. But this is the poster that was given out that day by MCA Records, specially made for this album signing release party. And Bobby's got a ticket stub probably to the Lakeland show right there. But one of the important things of history that most Skynyrd fans never knew about is a secret that Bobby Sanders put right here. Okay, that is a business card to a notorious biker gang, and I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, Gene Odum did not know Bobby Sanders at the time this picture was taken. It was just Bobby and Ronnie. Okay, and you have to wonder, what was the connection? Very interesting. We'd have to ask Bobby that connection, and what is the meaning behind that right there? Okay, so on that day, several things were going on. MCA Records had hired a photographer named Charles Odum to take pictures of the band, which the MCA wanted to use. And I have a couple of pictures of that. This is Charles Odum right there with camera in hand. You can see the camera's in his hand. He's kind of stalking band members as they came out of the back. You can see Artemis and Leon are some of the first ones to come out. Ronnie would be sitting right about here when he signed Bobby's picture that you see right there. And this is another picture of Charles Odum kind of stalking band members with a camera that's in his hand right there. His name is Charles Odum. Now, Charles, like I said, was hired by MCA Records. And years later, he sent me some pictures. Thanks, Kent, Charles Odum. These are some of the pictures that he took on that day. Each one of these is signed by Charles Odum. This is the only complete set known to exist. There are no other sets of these pictures. One of a kind. So Richard Daniels, who was he? Well, here's a picture of Richard Daniels with Johnny Van Zant. Richard did lights for the Johnny Van Zant band toured. It was just him and Lacey in the truck. Poor Richard. So Johnny Van Zant band, but that is Richard Daniels, the man who took that photograph on that day. Now the story goes, Richard was my roommate. He rented a room from me at Cherrywood Gardens Drive, and I lived there in a condo, and Richard rented a room from me. And he owed some back rent, so he gave me his photographs, to help pay for the rent. He wanted to get rid of some of his stuff. He didn't want it anymore. And in those photographs were the Altamont Mall photographs. No one had ever seen that picture before. No one even knew that this picture existed until I got my hands on that roll of film that Richard Daniels had taken that day. Richard was inside the mall. He was working at a record store inside the Altamont Springs Mall when he heard the band was out there. So he grabbed his camera and he grabbed one roll of black and white film and went out there to take pictures. And this was one of those pictures that Richard Daniels had taken. Now, here are some of the other pictures that Richard took that day on that roll of film. Here's Artemis, Ronnie, Gary, some of the band members. And there's Ronnie right there. You can see other fans have posters. You can see the posters are laying right there on the table with pens and everything. Gene Odum says that's his briefcase. Ronnie. Artemis talking to the crowd. Gary looking around. Charles Odum seen over there taking his pictures. Gary again. And some more of the band members and radio station personnel out back. So that's how that picture was taken that day. It was by Richard Daniels right there.